So in the last video I showed you how to submit a basic token contract to the Ethereum blockchain, and you'll notice that we ended the last video on this screen. So as you can see, there is a button to interact with the contract. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open that in a new window. I'm also going to click on the contract address so that you can see how one gets to the interact page through the contract interface. So I'll just wait a few moments for this page to load, and you'll see that the name that I supplied for the token is displayed on the contract page. Any transactions that have been executed are displayed here, and in the top corner there is this interact button. So in addition to that, just quickly, there is a contract code tab, which if I click will show the source code and the bytecode which I submitted. Had I selected to not publicly display this information when I was submitting the contract, of course this would not be here. So again, if I want to access the interactive contract page from the contract interface, I can do that by clicking here. As I've already opened the page in a different tab, I will just quickly skip there. You'll be met by a page like this. As you can see, it specifies that methods which have this eye icon next to them are read methods, and methods with this pencil are write methods. It also has this message which states that you should read the contract source code to understand what it does prior to interacting with it. Obviously, if you were interacting with a contract and you didn't know what it does, in principle you could potentially call this transfer function and it could do whatever it wanted to do. So always make sure that you check that the code does what you expect it to do. So firstly, I am going to use this balance of method. Now, this method is a read method, which means that it doesn't need to write any data to the blockchain. I'm simply checking to see what the balance of my tokens are for a specific address. Now, you'll notice if you look at the source code that when I specified the token supply in the constructor, all of the token supply was initially given to the address which was creating the contract. That was my address, so I will go ahead and paste that in here, and I will click call function. It will show me the result, 100 tokens. Now we'll scroll down and there's this write function. This allows me to transfer tokens to a different account. So I've gone ahead and pasted in another address that I control here, and I will enter a value. I want to send 20 of my tokens. I click on call function, and in this case I'm asked to select a wallet. This is because this transaction writes to the blockchain, so it requires miners to process the transaction and execute it, which obviously costs gas, which someone has to pay for. I'll select mnemonic, enter my mnemonic, enter a session password, and we'll click load wallet. I wait a few moments, and I'm met by this screen. Now, the nonce and the gas price are pre-populated. I suggest that you don't change this unless you know what you're doing. But there's also an option for how many ether would you like to send. In this case, the execution of the function will take the necessary amount of ether from your account to pay for the gas, but sometimes you want to send an additional value with your transaction. For example, with the ENS registrar contract, when you submit a bid, you need to send additional ether as well as the gas to pay for your bid. In this case, no additional ether needs to be sent, so I will type in 0. I Then click Generate Signed Transaction and click Submit. It will show me that the transaction has been submitted to the chain, and it will display a transaction hash. In this case, there isn't at the moment there isn't an interface which directly shows you the status of that transaction, but if you scroll down to the Your Transfers section, you can see that it has been added to your transactions, and it has already been mined because it's a small and simple transaction function call. So what I could do now is I can go back to the function list. I see my result from earlier, whereby I checked the balance of my address and saw that I had 100 tokens. If I now enter my address again and click Call Function, you'll see that I only have 80 tokens. That is, of course, because I just sent 20 tokens to a new address, which, if I input that here, I can see that that one has 20 tokens. So we can confirm that the transaction did execute successfully. One additional feature of this interface is that if your contract method outputs events, they will also be displayed on this interface. But yes, that was just a basic overview of how you interact with a basic contract.